I've been playing outdoors since I was a kid, standing by the front door at around 2 years old, hollering, side, 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 trying to get my mom to let me go play outside. Now, after 30 plus years working in the outdoor business, I'm dropping insider conversations every week with the brand leaders, guides, marketers, CEOs, and others that make the outdoor industry a trillion-dollar juggernaut that drives product innovation, revenue, and public policy for everything outdoors. I'm Rick Sayes. Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 439 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, brought to you by Oru Kayak, high-performance folding kayaks for all types of paddlers. Today I'm talking with Bob Wohlers of Discover Off-Roading. Bob is first and foremost an outdoor adventurer. Simply put, he's a surf and turf kind of guy. Regarding the surf aspect, for 32 years, Bob created curricula and invented training methodologies for PADI, the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. For the turf aspect, Bob has been an avid off-roader his entire life. He knows the zen and fine art of safe and environmentally responsible off-road driving, and he's prepared to teach you in a short time the lessons he's learned over the many years through the School of Hard Knocks. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Well, Rick, it's a real pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on your fine podcast. I've listened to so many, and I'm humbled because you interview some really wonderful businessmen in the outdoor space. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'm a pretty fortunate guy to have a lot of acquaintances in a wide variety of outdoor activities. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about the off-roading adventures that you run. That sounds pretty cool. But I got to first start with, I was looking at your bio, and it says that you're first and foremost an outdoor adventurer. Simply put, he's a surf and turf kind of guy. And then regarding the surf aspect, for 32 years, you created the curricula for PADI, the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. How did you get into that? Well, you must have been a diver, obviously.
Yes. Well, it started in junior high watching KTLA in the Los Angeles Basin and watching reruns of Sea Hunt and Mike Nelson. And I would rush home from school to watch that every day at 5:00. And then the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau started coming on in my high school years. And I was really a biology enthusiast in high school and got good grades. And I said to myself, I really want to know more. So I learned how to dive at San Bernardino Valley College in my senior year of high school.
Wow.
That would be 1969. And that was really kind of at the forefront of recreational scuba. That was when scuba really started taking off in the United States. So I became an instructor. That's what paid for most of my way through Cal State Long Beach. I was getting a marine science degree at Cal State Long Beach and finished that baccalaureate degree. And then I went to UCI and got a California secondary teaching credential and taught high school for a bit of time and junior high. And then I decided, I couldn't stand the high pay and the high respect of teaching. And that's said very, very sarcastically because I actually loved the act of teaching.
Teaching's fun. I did that for a little while too.
Oh, I so enjoyed teaching the students, no matter what the age was. But I got into recreational scuba and never kind of looked back. And I was lucky enough to be hired by PADI. I just enjoyed my time there and got a master's degree in instructional design so that I could write better curriculum for them. But I had a team of people. It wasn't all me. It was a wonderful group of people that created the books and then the videos. And then finally, before I left, we started elearning with mixing the video and the static illustrations and the 3D illustrations and then the text and the voiceover and putting that all online once the internet became the thing for learning.
Right.
And then I decided to reach out on my own, and the company actually traded hands from a family operation to private equity. And I really enjoyed working with the Cronin family. John Cronin was the CEO of U.S. Divers, which was a big company, but he and Ralph Erickson started PADI. and Ralph was an educator at Loyola University in Chicago. The two of them started PADI, and then PADI grew at a very fast incremental rate, exponentially, and to the point where now really 8 out of every 10 divers in the world are certified through PADI.
Yeah, I was going to say they're the 800-pound gorilla, right? They're the way to go.
Yeah, and I was honored to be a part of that growth process and innovation and developing the proper education and training instructors and all the rest. So I sat at the vice president's table and the board and listened very enthusiastically about business, because I was not a business guy. I was a marine science biologist, and I had a degree in instructional design, and business was a foreign entity to me. But when they would talk business, I would listen how an association is started, how an instructor association is run. So that's my background with PADI. I still dive. My wife and I still dive.
Oh, cool.
And, we combine off-roading and diving, and we fly and dive, and we don't dive in California anymore. It's a little cold, but
yeah. Well, how'd you get into the off-roading part? Where'd that come from?
So, try to make this very short. When I was going to Cal State Long Beach, a lot of my friends were older than I. They were returning from Vietnam, and on the GI Bill, they were going to school. And a lot of these veterans were in marine science and were divers. We started a scuba club on campus, and one of my very fine friends that was older than I had a really wonderful 68 Bronco. And he would allow me to join him on journeys to Mexico with our scuba gear and dive, on the beaches in Baja.
Wow.
And sometimes he would let me drive when he would take the nap, and this was right when Highway 1 in Baja, the Trans-Peninsular Highway, was starting to be built. And there were still wide swaths of it that didn't exist. And then even after, when I was teaching high school, we would go down during Christmas break, and in the summers we would go to Baja to go diving, mostly on the Sea of Cortez.
Cool.
Because there's tropical fish there. So that's kind of how I got into off-roading. And, then I bought my own off-road vehicle and used it to go diving. And
what was your vehicle? What was your first vehicle?
I had it was a Chevy, really terrible vehicle.
A Bronco or something? No, that was a Ford. Bronco.
No, that was a Ford. Well, my very, very first vehicle was a dune buggy, a VW dune buggy. Now that's not a 4-wheel drive vehicle, but that's all I could afford in going to school. Because I paid my own way through school. I didn't take out any loans, so I paid my way through school. Scuba diving kind of paid for my way through school, and so my dune buggy was really the first. But my Chevy Blazer.
That's right. Yeah. Blazer.
I was having a brain fart. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that happens to me all the time. Yep, Blazer.
Yeah. It was a terrible vehicle. But from there, I got into older CJ7s and completely did a couple of frame up restorations on CJ7s while I was still at PADI, and really took my kids off-roading, and that's what we did for family vacations, and Death Valley and Anza-Borrego Desert, around the Southern California area and beyond.
Yeah.
And then the missus and I explored a lot of those backcountry areas too when the kids were gone. So,
and what inspired you to discover off-roading? What made you want to make a business out of it?
Okay, how do I do this without throwing anybody under the bus? So we won't mention any names, and that's the only way I can do that. And I wouldn't do that anyway. But I took a couple of classes from a couple of Air Fingers quote people that were teaching off-roading. I felt I just I didn't know enough about off-roading.
And this was in the 60s or 70s?
No, this would be in the 80s now.
Okay.
Now we're talking about the 80s, and now I had a home and I was working at PADI. I was a vice president. And so I went and took a couple of these courses from the experts, and they were wonderful people. Don't get me wrong. Really fine people. But having a background in education and knowing a little bit about how education, what it should look like. I was a little disappointed, to be honest.
I've had that experience.
So on the second course, when I was coming home on a 2-day course, I just was driving myself, and I just said to myself, I could do this in my sleep, but I've got to learn more about off-roading. I need to learn more. And those 2 classes that I took, I learned quite a bit. So hats off to them. I just thought that maybe, it's like anything. I guess you look at something and you say, I think I could do this better. Doesn't mean you're better than them.
How about the training you had at PADI, though, too, developing that curriculum? There's one thing to go out and, quote unquote, teach somebody how to do something by showing them how to do it. And as you know, it's a whole nother thing to teach them. So you had that going for you.
Yeah. And the thing I saw in these 2 courses was not a lot of hands-on. It was them showing us how something was done. And when I teach, my comment to all my students is, if I do it for you, you don't learn nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I am not really an educator. I'm not really the teacher. I'm a coach. I chart the pathway for their success, but they got to do it, and they got to drive, and they've got to winch, and they've got to do the recovery, and they've got to change the tire, and they've got to repair the tire in the field. If I do it and just show them the things in my vehicle and the tools that I use, and I just do it for them, they don't learn anything. That's really where it started, Rick. Was
interesting.
I was a bit disappointed.
Yeah. So what do you think sets Discover Off-Roading apart from other outdoor adventure companies like that? Is it that teaching, that ingrained deep teaching aspect, or?
I would like to think so. So I quickly found, after incorporating, I'm an S Corp in California. The S Corp that I own is Blue Sky Adventures, and then Off-Road Safety Academy is a DBA. You got to layer your liability, right? I learned that at PADI.
These days.
And so when I started Blue Sky Adventures, my goal was really to train other people. So first, I had to learn the ins and outs of off-roading. That knowledge base I needed to learn. So I read everything. I attended as many clinics and courses that I could at various events and so forth and so on. And then I said, okay, I think I've got enough knowledge now to lay down some curriculum. And my intent was to build a house that other people could build. So from the very beginning, it was I wanted to teach others what I learned, the mistakes that I made and the successes that I had. And it was always the purpose of Off-Road Safety Academy to start the Off-Road Training Association. So that's kind of a question that you have further down your list here is, what's in the future? So we can get to that later. But I really wanted to build a curriculum and a protocol and some standards so that I could do instructor training like we did in diving and really bring it to a point where others could either work part-time as a trainer, an off-road trainer, and or do it full-time and have a mortgage and have a family and still feed themselves without having a second job.
Interesting.
Because I found that a lot of the people that are teaching out there right now, not all of them, but some of them have day jobs and they work on the weekends and they really aren't putting themselves out there, or they don't want to put themselves out there. It's not that they're a failure, but they're not crafting their company in such a way that they can do it full time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to prove that you could have a mortgage, you could have car payments, you could pay your insurance, your liability insurance, you could pay all your business fees, your taxes, and all the rest, and still have a profit margin.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
And do you,
and teaching off-roading.
yeah, yeah, teaching operating. So a lot of the folks that come from that take your course, do you end up hiring them later at some point? I mean, I'm sure you've hired a few.
So
That
I
seems
would
to be
love to.
Yeah.
I've tried, Rick, I've honestly tried to stay out of partnering with other people to help me teach the courses. I have some associates, some apprentices, maybe that's a better word,
Okay.
where they
Gotcha.
help me with the courses.
Gotcha.
And I remunerate them for that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, a lot of times. They just want to move their knowledge up as well, and I give them micro teaching assignments to do. But I've tried to stay out of that because there's so many rules and regulations for even general contractors, and
Yeah.
California is not an easy state to work
Yeah.
in. Let's just be honest.
Liability for everything. Yeah.
Right. So I've been there, done that, having had employees at PADI. So I just said, I think if I really want to build this house, if my objective is to start an association where we're training instructors or just doing general training, I don't really need anybody else really to help me. Now, I would love to have some partners, and maybe we can talk about that later. But for Off-Road Safety Academy, it's kind of been a one-man journey.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of energy.
Yeah, and I'm 71, so
I hear you.
It's harder every day.
I hear you. I'm not quite that old yet, but I'm gaining on you. I can tell you that.
Well, we're all headed down that path at the same
right.
pace,
That's right. That's right. Yep. So how do you make the off-roading experiences both exciting and safe? Because at some point in order to unroll the car, you got to unroll the vehicle. You got to roll the vehicle.
That is such an excellent question. So let's talk about safety first.
Yeah.
And then we'll get to the thrilling part. How do you make it safe, and how do you make it thrilling?
Right.
So the safety part really comes from being a wilderness first aid instructor, so that I can manage an injury or an illness in the field.
Yep.
And that's more important for my tours than it is for my training. So that's part of it. And then having the right wilderness first aid kit, and for example,
tools,
I have an AED that I own and goes with me on every course that I teach and every tour that I take. An AED is an automated external defibrillator. So in case somebody grabs the center of their chest and their left arm is going numb and they fall down on the ground, we can put 2 pads on them and hopefully shock them back to join us. So you've got to know all of that to really be on the safety side of things. Plus, you really need to know, if we're talking about tours now, because courses are a little different than tours. Tours are where the thrilling part and the safety part really kind of meld here. So the safety part also entails learning the trail really well. And so that kind of, in my opinion, kind of slides over to the thrilling part. If you know the environment and you know the trail, then you should know, for your tours, you should know the history, the geology, some of the biology, some of the unique endemic species in the area. And of course, being a biologist, that's pretty easy for me.
Yeah.
I'm no geologist, but I love being kind of an amateur geologist. And then knowing the history, like on the Rimrocker Trail that I take tours on, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and the Hole in the Wall gang factored mightily into the history of that whole Utah, Colorado area.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So that's the thrilling part. And then also the off-road driving is part of the thrilling. And now we're talking about teaching during tours, which I do. I don't do heavy off-road instruction when we're doing tours because I don't have any qualifiers for people to come on tours. In other words, you have to have taken my class, you have to take the recovery class. I don't do that. I want anybody to come that feels uncomfortable going to that region all by themselves or wants to be part of a community on the trail.
Mm-hmm.
Or wants to learn a little bit about off-roading.
Mm-hmm.
How
Mm-hmm.
do you make the manual transmission on an automatic transmission? How do you make that manual mode work? How do you
Mm-hmm.
actually shift into four low? A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't know that.
Wow, interesting. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that when you shift into four low, the little car with the little wavy lines, the little amber symbol comes on. Why does that come on when you go into four low on all
Yeah.
modern vehicles?
Yeah. Yeah.
People don't know those kinds of things, so I try to teach them that, like airing down tires.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I try to teach when I'm on the tours. So maybe I should back up just for a minute. So I have three parts to my business. So teaching four-wheel drive,
Yep.
recreational,
Yep.
teaching corporate and government four-wheel drive, which is usually by contract,
Okay.
and then my tours. Those are the
Gotcha.
three real profit centers of Off-Road Safety Academy. So to
Mm-hmm.
make each one of those thrilling and safe, there's different parameters for all three.
That makes sense now. Yeah, I should have asked that question first, probably.
That's okay.
I didn't have that in the list. Yeah, that's a good. Thanks for clarifying that because you're right. If you're just going to go on a tour, you probably don't have any. You have a waiver, I'm sure, but you
Yeah.
don't have any qualifications to get those people. If you got the vehicle and you have the,
Right.
there's some things, but if you want to go on the instruction part of the course, I'm sure there's a whole nother level of questions you ask.
Yeah. Now, I try to encourage people that are signed up for my tours. I try to encourage them to read four-wheel drive books,
Yeah.
mine and other books that are out there, or take a course that will help you on the tour. But rest easy. You're not going to be admonished for not knowing how to put it into four-wheel drive. You're not going to be cajoled into not knowing how to, use automatic transmission gear one to go down steep hills and
Right.
how to use your electronic descent button and all the rest. You're not going to be criticized for knowing that. We're going to help you with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's like a lot of the
real-
mountain guides around here up in the Eastern Sierra, the backcountry ski guides and the mountain guides. They really have to know all the details, including the flora and the fauna and why we're not going to take that trail. We always use this trail, and obviously you spent a lot of time back there. So, yeah.
And I'm lucky I have a wife that loves to go with me. So when we
Yeah.
reconnoiter a new trail, it's her and I, or I go with a few of my friends that have been on multiple of my tours or taken my classes that have become, they used to be clients and now they're students and now they're friends. And so they go with me when I go to reconnoiter a new trail.
How many
But I
times
have to learn that trail really well.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many times do you do that before you offer it as a trip?
I try to do it at least twice.
Mm-hmm.
With a lot of internet. That's where the internet just shines, because especially YouTube and anything else that you can find online about the geology, the biology, the background, the history, you can find that online. I will study that. I will read books. And then 2 to 3 times I'll try to reconnoiter that trail before I'll take a paid customer on that trail.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Just going back for a second, I can tell you that the one thing that really keeps the lights on of those 3 types of profit centers that I have, recreational four-wheel drive, corporate and government, and then tours. Corporate and government training really keeps the lights on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. If you get a big government contract, like I had for a while, I taught the rangers in the Southwest National Parks.
Oh, wow.
When Mohave first became a national park and they took it away from the BLM, they had 3 rangers die in a very tragic accident in a Tahoe that the driver was, as I understand the story, the driver was transferred from the Statue of Liberty out to Mohave National Preserve, which are 2 state parks, right?
Oh,
so he was transferred out there, didn't know anything about four-wheel drive, and he rolled the Tahoe going too fast. In Mohave, and they parked that vehicle out in front of the station, the headquarters of Mohave National Preserve in Barstow for many, many years. I don't think it's there anymore, but they wanted to remind everybody coming to work there that four-wheeling is not to be taken lightly. So they found me, they hired me. I taught the science people in Mohave National Preserve and the rangers and a lot of BLM personnel. And then Joshua Tree and Death Valley and some others I had contracts with as well.
Have you been done anything over here in the Owens Valley, Eastern Sierra?
Well, would be traveling to Death Valley and
you've been through town a lot.
And trying not to go down the Central Valley on I-5 or 99. I would go over Donner Pass on I-80 and then hit 395, even to get to Mohave National Preserve, just to go the scenic route. Right.
Yeah.
So I've spent a lot of time wheeling up and out of Bishop too.
It's a beautiful spot. A lot to do up here.
Yeah. Coyote Canyon and and that whole area. What is it? White Mountain and
Mountain.
And up in the that area.
Panamint, a lot of stuff here.
A lot of stuff up there.
So what are some of the most popular destinations that you take people on?
So I have to say, right now, because I'm kind of pushing it, but it's always been popular, and that is Baja.
Oh, interesting.
And the Baja interest grew with the growth of overlanding. So off-roading really can be categorized in several different areas. There's your rock crawlers. There's your people that do off-roading for work. In other words, at work, those are my corporate and government people. And then there's overlanding, and even overlanding, in my opinion, and I know people have their own opinions about the definition of overlanding, but it's really vehicle-supported adventures. Whether you're a fly fisherman or a mountaineer or you're a scuba diver and you use four-wheel drive to take you to the beach that you want to go to, the mountain you want to go to, the stream you want to go to. That's recreational overlanding. But also, Rick, recently there's been a big thrust and growth in what I like to call lifestyle overlanding, where the dentist sells his practice, goes out and buys his earth roamer, and just takes off around the world. And that's lovely.
Sounds fun.
That's just wonderful. And there are times where I wished I would just cash it all in and just do that. But, I've got this mission that I want to stay on, so it kind of keeps me from doing that. But Baja has become very popular. Other trails, of course, I'm close to Death Valley. Death Valley is very popular. I have a Death Valley tour. I have 2 Death Valley tours this year.
Oh, wow.
One is my overlanding tour, and the other one is what I call a base camp tour. Those are the people that tow their off-road vehicle behind their motorhome, and they want to leave their motorhome and come back to the motorhome every night. And that is my very, very, very popular Death Valley Miners Cabin Tour. Where every day we leave out of Panamint Valley near Ballarat. We camp near Ballarat. And we go to a different miner's cabin
Interesting. Wow.
every day. And
That's cool.
They're kind of secret cabins. A lot of people know where they are. I'm not saying that people don't know, but you won't probably find the coordinates on a lot of websites because you get admonished for doing that. But
there's a lot of stuff to see in Death Valley. It's
there's a lot of things to see in Death Valley.
Yeah, it's a great spot.
Yeah.
Are there a couple of memorable experiences or success stories of past adventures that kind of were organized by you and your anything stand out?
So we just want to talk about tours. So people
tours.
paying me to go into the backcountry. Well, since this is a business podcast, we should probably talk about tours, not my off-roading personal adventures where I'm just
I'm not. I'm something that someone else can either come and go with you or go with someone else or go by themselves.
And I am so honored when people pay me to show them an area. And the objective of the tours is to really introduce them to the area so they feel comfortable enough to go back.
Oh, nice.
Because there's no way, and most of my U.S. tours, well, all of my U.S. tours are all 3 days, 3 nights.
Okay.
So then most of my tours are overlanding style tours. I only do that one base camp tour in Death Valley where we come back to the same campsite every night. But, really the thing that the people really love are the campfires
Yeah.
You know, at the
the
end of the night,
camaraderie around
camaraderie around the campfire. I try to get into camp long before the sun goes down, so that people have time to have a nice dinner. On the overlanding tours, we come back and, you know, we try to get in by 3 to 5 o'clock, depending on the day. But, you know, there's always interesting things going on, Rick, on tours. I define in my website what kind of vehicle you should have when you go on the tours. You have to have a 4-wheel drive vehicle, and you have to, on the overland tours, you have to be able to camp out of your vehicle, because we switch nights every night to a different campsite. So it's really an overlanding tour. And they have, you know, I don't know anything about those vehicles. So my limit, as a permitted outfitter, because on public lands you have to get a permit. So a little business here. If you're going to lead a tour for pay, for money, you have to be permitted. And I'm very much in favor of the permitting process. It's a little onerous, and I wish the BLM and the National Park System would get together and make the same.
Yeah, exactly. They come up with the same rules and regs, right? Exactly.
Same rules and regs, but they don't. They don't even like each other generally. The BLM doesn't really like the park system.
You wonder if it's the same government sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you wonder. And then there's the Forest Service, which is under a different, you know, Department of the Interior, and then the others are under Ag. You know, so they don't talk to each other. So the permitting process is difficult. Now, your question was, is there any interesting things that go on? So I don't know anything about these vehicles. So we do have some vehicle meltdowns once in a while.
Oh man, I can imagine.
In the remote backcountry. And it's really where I earn my pay.
I'll bet.
That and injury and illnesses in the backcountry, which I've had darn few of, luckily.
That's good. Yeah.
But you know, we've
become a master mechanic right there, fixing it on the side of the road.
This is an area where I lack. I know enough to get things going.
Okay.
And I in every area I have that contact person, like John Miller from John Miller's Towing. He's my contact for Death Valley, because I know that even my rangers in Death Valley are going to contact John to help with a mechanical problem.
Right.
But everybody knows before they go on the trip that if they have a breakdown, on a severe breakdown, that they're responsible for paying their way out. And it can be pretty expensive to have a vehicle towed out of the back country.
In the front country, it can be expensive.
Yeah. John runs a $3,000 credit card before he even leaves his place to come and get you. I don't know what it is now, what the cost is, but it's not cheap.
Yeah.
So, but we've had darn few of those too.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
It's been, the campfires are a treat. The off-roading and showing people the environment, the habitat, the biology, the history, for me, that's the real thrill. And I'd like to think that my clients like that, because in the last 3 years, Rick, and I'm very humbled to say this, I'm not saying this boastfully, but on every tour, I have over 60% return.
Wow, that's great.
So I can only take 12 vehicles in the backcountry in the U.S., and I only take 10 to Baja, because that's all I can manage going internationally.
Right. Yeah,
good. But 12 vehicles is a lot of vehicles.
Yeah.
And
do you have you must have a lengthy checklist and questionnaire for them to run through the vehicle before they can, sign off. You sign off, or they sign off. Somebody signs off that they've had this done, that done, that.
I do.
Otherwise, it could be a mess.
I have quite a definition of what I call a vehicle in top condition.
Yeah.
And you need to show up at the briefing before we venture out together on the tour. You need to show up with a vehicle in top condition.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That is really, really well defined in my standards for going on a tour, because that hedges bets.
Yeah, it has to be. I can't imagine. Some of these cars, and these are probably cars that people drive to work every day. So some of them are,
It can be. Yeah, it can be.
Hey, would you kayak more if your boat fit easily in the trunk of your car or the back of your car? No roof rack needed? No, seriously. I'm guessing you'll paddle more if you don't have to go through the process. Move the car, get the ladder, remove the kayak from the racks in the garage, put the racks on the car, load the kayak, then do it all over again when you get to the water. Get the step stool, unload the kayak. You know the drill. Oru Kayaks to the rescue. They have transformed the way we connect to the outdoors. Oru kayaks are lightweight and incredibly strong. They fold down to fit in most cars. Oru's innovative origami-inspired living hinge lets you assemble them in about 1 minute, and they're designed for versatility, able to handle calm lakes, rivers with mild currents, and even coastal waters with ease. And Oru is offering Outdoor Biz listeners a great deal. Go to orukayak.com and use code ODBIZORU15, that's ODBIZORU15, and get 15% off your new kayak today. That's ODBIZORU15, and that code is good until July 31st. Get on it. Then send us pictures of your first adventure. Now let's get back to the show. How do you approach sustainability and environmental responsibility with all the off-roading things that go on? You stay on the trails and the roads and things, and
right.
Don't rip up the desert, the flats. Yeah.
Well, if we're talking about tours, because that would be venturing out into the remote backcountry.
Mm-hmm.
As a permitted outfitter, you have certain guidelines that you have to live by. And so obviously, if you don't live by those, you can have your permit pulled. And your name will be mud because they all talk to each other. And your name should be mud if you're doing things in the backcountry where you're not helping the environment, but hurting the environment. So that's the first thing, is that we live by those standards, and they're very good standards. The public lands people are tremendously intelligent and well motivated, and they're just wonderful to have back there. But also, I'm a master tread trainer for Tread Lightly. So all of my course people, my tour people, they all learn about the Tread Lightly principles of environmental ethics. That's a big part of my course, because that is sustainability for the future.
Yep.
That's to teach people how to off-road responsibly and to protect the environment. And I think anybody that you would interview that's ever been on my tours would say that Bob leaves the campsites that we visit cleaner than we found them. And that means picking up all the trash, even if it's not ours, before we depart in the morning to go to a different, a trail to a different campsite.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that we picked up a lot of trash over the years.
No, but I can only imagine. We've all done that over the years.
Yeah. I also donate money to a lot of the environmental groups. Sometimes we do tours where I give away most of the money. Like Black Rock Desert, last year we gave them $5,000 from one of the tours we did in the Black Rock Desert to Friends of Black Rock. I don't know if you know of that group.
Yeah, I heard of it. Yeah,
out of the little town. I'm having a brain fade again. Anyway, they're a wonderful environmental group, and I'm happy to donate to them.
That's awesome. Yeah. How has the off-roading industry evolved over the years? Obviously, the vehicles have changed. Have they gotten, it seems to me from what I see on the highways, they've gotten bigger and obviously, more capable of doing a wide variety of things.
Well, that's a great question, Rick. The biggest evolution that's happened in the last many years, and I'm happy to say this for Scott Brady and Overland Journal Group, is the overlanding component of off-roading. It's been there since the beginning of vehicles going off-road. Overlanding's been around since my grandfather, basically. It is old Model A and Model T.
My grandfather did the same thing.
Yeah, because they had to drive off-road to get to their Nebraska farms. So
exactly.
They didn't have any pavement.
Right.
And they car camped, and they would pick up their camp and go from camp to camp. And, so overlanding's been around a long time. It didn't have a real definition to it until really Overland Journal and that group came along. And that's the largest growing area business-wise of off-roading.
I'll bet.
In fact, a lot of the clubs that are rock crawler clubs, and they go out for the day, but they don't camp in the backcountry. They'll come back to a campsite, to an RV park or whatever, and that's okay. It's a different kind of off-roading. They're wonderful people, but that is an growing older group that is kind of I wouldn't say it's disappearing, but
Interesting.
it's growing probably not at the same rate that overlanding is.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting because they don't want to put their vehicles through that, or what? Why do you think that is?
Well, it's a different kind of vehicle.
It's a wholly different kind of vehicle, yeah, but it
Yeah.
put a lot more wear and tear on that vehicle too.
Well, it can be. It just depends on driving skills.
Yeah, I guess that's
Hence,
true.
Off-Road Safety Academy. So, I have a Power Wagon, a 2018 Power Wagon with a four-wheel camper on it. That's my primary teaching and overlanding vehicle. That's what I take to lead my tours. I have a backup Jeep JK with a Alu cab, rooftop tent, and the refrigerator and the lithium, ferrite phosphate batteries in the back of both
Yep.
vehicles. So I have a backup tour vehicle because I can't cancel the tour because my truck doesn't work. So,
Right.
so I have a backup overlanding vehicle as well. But overlanding is really the growing segment. I think younger families that want to go out. I mean, that's what we did
Hmm.
with my kids, and that was before overlanding was really a word.
Right. Yeah.
Is we would go camp in the backcountry. Now, a lot of
Same.
times
Yeah,
we stayed
exactly.
at
Yeah.
RV parks, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
but the vehicles are very different. Rock crawling and day touring, scenic trail touring, and coming
Hmm.
back to an RV park or to a motel every night is
Yep.
different from staying in the backcountry and
Yep.
overlanding.
Hmm.
So they're both vehicle supported adventures,
Hmm.
but one comes back to an urban center or a campsite or
Yep.
an
Hmm.
RV park, and the other stays in the backcountry.
Yep. Yep.
And I would say my split in my classes is probably 8 out of 10 people are overlanders.
Gotcha.
And I'll have a couple of rock crawlers bring their vehicles to my classes as well. And I try to
Interesting.
teach both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What trends do you see? How's that going to change in the next few years, do you think? Say the next 10 years, what will it look like?
I think
The
I
vehicles,
think
obviously, it will be
overlanding is going
completely
to
different.
continue to grow
Yeah.
uh, hugely. Uh, I think rock crawling will kind of stay on a even keel. I don't think they're going to lose participation in that because there's a lot of people that have motorhomes and don't go overlanding. They want to come back to their motorhome, so they
Yep.
tow their Jeep JK or their Defender, or their Land Rover Defender or whatever behind their
Yeah.
motorhome or up on a trailer, and that's not really overlanding.
Yeah. They
Um,
want to sleep in those comfy beds too. So
and you know what? God love them.
nothing wrong with that.
If I had a motorhome like that, I used to have a motorhome, but I've decided that I want to downsize. So, but that's just a different kind of off-roading. What I'm seeing evolving is really fuel mixes in
Hmm.
the mix now with vehicles. Of course, we've got a few EVs out there that are very close to having the range for overlanding, like the
Really?
Rivians.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, when you have hybrid situations, that gives you extended range. It's not all battery. It's still an ICE engine, internal combustion engine.
Hmm.
Uh, but there's some things in the future that I'm starting to follow.
Wow.
Hydrogen has been around for a while, but it's starting to see a new awakening with Toyota and their new V8 hydrogen engine,
Hmm.
uh, as opposed to taking the hydrogen and converting it to electricity and really having an electric vehicle that's running on hydrogen. Now they're
Mm-hmm.
using the hydrogen instead of petrol, instead of gasoline,
Yeah.
and or diesel, and they're using the hydrogen in a V8 engine. And Toyota just started
Wow.
really talking about that in the last year. So the growth, I think, what we're going to see is extended ranges with fuel mixes. We don't see it now in the EVs because they just don't have the range, and there's no way to refuel,
Hmm.
in a lot of areas in the
Right.
backcountry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I see great promise there because I really think that the human species, when it comes to a precipice, we always find a way,
I
and
know. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing to see the ingenuity, and I'm ever hopeful that we can
Yeah.
solve the CO2 problem, yet at the same time extend the range and have
That's the
cleaner
thing.
fuels and have this long range so we can really explore the backcountry without
Yeah.
refueling,
Both off-road and on-road. That's
both
we have
off-road
to
and
do that.
on-road.
Otherwise, we're not going to be here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about navigation? I'll bet the satellite navigation has really changed. It's
So technology in vehicles is one thing, technology and navigation. And I saw your question. I would add communication.
oh yeah, good one.
So the technology advances that I'm personally experiencing and I'm seeing my students and my tour participants use is the really wonderful navigation tools that we see out there now that are all using GPS and the digital mapping that they're downloading and
Yep.
all of that.
Yep.
One of my favorite navigational tools is Onyx.
I've heard of it.
They're a wonderful company. There's another person you should talk to. His
Mm.
name is Chris Cortis. He leads Onyx, the Onyx team. So the Onyx navigation, the Garmin navigation. I have a Garmin Overlander, which has the whole world in a tablet-like device. It's got maps everywhere. You don't have
Wow.
to download anything into it. I could go to Egypt and drive the Sinai, and my maps would
Wow.
be in that device.
That's cool.
And I can get those from Onyx too. So
Uh-huh.
Onyx is a competitor. So the navigation tools have really made my job on tours a lot easier.
I'll bet.
And it would really be a wonderful course. I've got a curriculum for it, and I try to teach a little bit of navigation skills in my intro to four-wheel drive class, but there's just not enough time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the communication end of things, Rick, has really become the wonderful thing. So recently, I finally pulled the grenade pin and got a Starlink Gen 3 system for my four-wheel camper and my power wagon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I went to Baja several weeks ago with my friends to reconnoiter a new trail tour in Baja, two of the participants on that tour, it wasn't a tour, they were my friends.
Mm-hmm.
They had Starlink Gen
Oh
2
wow.
systems and were every night that we camped, they hooked it up and it just sold me. I knew because I have
Yep.
Starlink here on my ranch because I live very rural. So
Yeah.
Starlink was a godsend 2 years ago for me
Yeah.
here. I couldn't be talking to you on my computer here.
I can't use it here because there's too many tall trees around me.
Oh, well, yeah, that can be a problem.
Yeah. I had it
But
and I tried to set it up, but didn't
didn't
get
work.
enough. Didn't work. Yeah.
So you can take it into the backcountry.
Yeah.
I'm not going
Yeah.
to mount it on top of my camper to begin with. I may do that later at some
hmm
point. But the people that I was with, my friends, they had just the little portable systems where
Yep.
they put
Yep.
it out on the tripod and got it away from the trees. And they have a 75-foot cord so they could take
Yeah.
it far away. And they were just using their inverter in their camper. And
It's very cool. Yeah.
it was amazing. And what's great about tours for me with Starlink, and I don't want to digress too much in this, but I have a OBD2 connector to diagnose on the tours if somebody has a check engine light come on, right? So
Okay.
I can see what the code is that the check engine light is throwing. I can, but that's about as far as you can go. And if my diagnostic OBD2 connector isn't the $6,000 snap-on type, which I don't have,
hmm
yeah, I can't. I can get the code, but I can't
Can't do anything about
diagnose what the problem. What does that code mean? Well, you
it.
set up the Starlink in your computer and you can go to
Yeah.
YouTube and you can put in that code and you
Yeah.
can actually watch a mechanic fix that problem.
Right. You can get right. Exactly.
And you can determine in a very short period of time whether you can fix it or whether you need to call the tow truck or
Yeah.
tow them back to the pavement or back to the States, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. That's huge. Yeah.
so Starlink navigation, and then of course modern vehicle advancement. I mean, vehicles now, Rick, are much more capable than their drivers right now. We're talking about
Exactly.
four-wheel drive.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
And that's nothing against the drivers.
No, right.
But they just don't know what that downhill assist button does. They don't know, how ESP works, electronic stability control.
Right.
And they don't understand electronic traction control. They don't understand lockers. They don't understand, So
Yeah.
modern vehicles, even the cheapest off-road vehicles now are so incredibly capable off-road.
Yeah.
Now there's
The
some good ones.
technology, yeah, it's got to be. I was talking to somebody on the podcast interview yesterday about the technology and the fact that all the technology, is putting a lot of pressure on us to do all the research and reading and learning about it, because I just got a new Mac and a new phone and all the new things, and it just takes a while to figure all that stuff out. It's great, but it's like, holy cow.
And can I tell you that is the hardest job for an off-road trainer?
I can
Because
imagine.
you have to know, if you have 12 vehicles come to your course, my courses are always full. I'm very honored. So my 12 vehicles come to my course, and they're 12 different.
I was going to say, every
Now
different.
that's
They're
the
different age,
recreational.
they're different model, they're different so many different ways. Holy cow.
And that's my recreational courses. Now my corporate and government courses, they all come with basically the same F-350s.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Or the Tahoes or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'll get the corporate and government courses are actually easier to teach because the vehicles in a company or in a government agency are all kind of the
Similar,
same.
yeah. At least the
But
same brand.
in a recreational course, you as an instructor, you're going to have 12 different vehicles come to your course. And I won't take any more than 12 because that's too many to teach. Education goes down exponentially when you go over 12 people.
I bet.
And it's really hard to keep up with all that. I don't own all those vehicles, so I'm not intimate with them. And no off-road trainer can say that they're intimate with every vehicle out there.
Impossible. Yeah. Impossible.
It's impossible.
Yeah. Impossible. Yeah. That makes a lot of
sense.
The
basics are pretty much the same on all the vehicles, but to be intimate with them, where the buttons are, you've got to. That's why I audit the people before they come to the course. They tell me what make, model, and year their vehicle is, and I do as much research on that vehicle. If I don't know anything about it, or I know very little, I'll research it, and then I have that knowledge, and I can help train them.
So make sure they bring the vehicle pamphlet with them.
Exactly, which nobody reads, by the way, and most of them are unreadable.
That's tough to read. Yeah, that's tough to read. Yeah. What's one piece of gear you think people should always have with them when they're overlanding or out in the backcountry?
Oof. Assuming that they're a vehicle-supported adventurer, so they've got the vehicle under them, I would not leave my ranch to either fly or to go off-roading without a personal locator beacon.
That's a good
one. Now,
one.
I'm 71, so my context for longevity is going to be different than a 20-year-old. But a personal locator beacon is an amazing piece of kit.
Yeah.
You can't communicate with it. It's a life or death button. You push the button when you need the cavalry to come and get you.
Like the avalanche beacons we used to have in the backcountry skiing. Yeah.
Right.
Well, they still have. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same technology. It's the same satellite constellation that, the military uses, and that are EPIRBs for boating. That boaters use, and the ELTs for private pilots. It all uses the same technology. It's just that a personal locator beacon is for hiking and for off-roading and for mountain climbing and recreation on land.
Yeah.
But I won't fly anymore without having my PLB in my carry-on luggage, because
interesting. I never
what
thought
if
of
you're
that.
the Andes, you're on the Andes soccer team and you go down in the Andes? If they'd had a PLB, they'd have had a helicopter there in 30 minutes.
Yeah. No, that's
maybe
smart.
An hour.
Yeah, that's smart.
So, and I don't go diving on dive boats without my PLB. Now, I don't take it underwater. I leave it on the dive boat, but I'll take my PLB with me just about everywhere. So I couldn't think of one particular piece of kit, but that one came first to my mind.
That's a good one. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a good one. I like
But
that
there's
one.
so many others.
Yeah. There's a lot of people.
I
Yeah, there's
wouldn't
a lot
leave
of things
home without.
you got to have them in your kit. Yeah. What advice do you have for people who are interested in getting started with off-roading but might feel intimidated? Take your
That,
course,
that,
obviously.
well, yeah, buy my books. But I think the biggest, I have a sadness in my courses sometimes. And my sadness is when somebody comes to my course and they bought the wrong vehicle for what they want to do with it.
Oh,
So deciding on the right vehicle based on what you want to do with it is incredibly important. So you're asking me about advice. As a trainer, I see this time and again, and it's really hard. I will never tell them during the course that they bought the wrong vehicle.
mm-hmm.
But 9 times out of 10, when they have bought the wrong vehicle, they'll drag their knuckles up to me at the end of the course with their head down, and they'll say, Bob, I bought the wrong vehicle, didn't I?
Interesting.
And I have to say, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And
It must be crushed.
so, yeah, it's really hard because I'm not trying to admonish them. I'm trying to lead them through a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Well, for example, just real quickly, I had a dentist that sold his business in Seattle and bought this really mondo off-road Jeep that was lifted. It had an LS engine in it. The engine was highly modified. The electrical system was highly modified. He wasn't a mechanic. It had 40-inch tires on it.
Oh my God.
And he bought a teardrop trailer, and he and his wife, he had talked his wife into going around the world overlanding.
Wow.
And he already was having trouble with that Jeep that is not really an overlanding vehicle. It's a rock crawler.
Right, yeah.
And my rock crawler is sitting out in my driveway here. I have 3 off-road vehicles. I have 2 overlanding vehicles, and then I have my rock crawler. And I don't like driving my rock crawler on the highway because after about 100 miles, it feels like you've gone 5 rounds with Mike Tyson.
Right.
That's not true with every Jeep or every built-up vehicle. Some of them are very nice on the highway.
Yeah.
But mine is an older TJ, and it's, so buying the wrong vehicle is something I would give advice. Make sure you decide what you want to do with your vehicle, how you're going to transport yourself and the vehicle. Are you going to tow it behind your motorhome? Because that vehicle would have been great for that dentist, towing behind his motorhome,
right,
or putting it up on a trailer and going and off-roading for the day and then coming back, and not driving thousands of miles on the pavement.
Yeah.
Because his wife hated it. I'm telling you.
I can imagine.
They were having arguments at the end of the course.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So,
I can't imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm going to skip over a couple of these questions. I think we've already talked about this. Can you share any upcoming projects or expansions you guys got working for your business?
Well, from a business standpoint, Off-Road Safety Academy has gone about as far as I can take it. I would be more than happy just working Off-Road Safety Academy until I can't do it anymore physically or mentally. But like I shared with you earlier in the conversation, my objective was always to start a professional association and train trainers. I watched PADI from a business standpoint as an employee. I watched a very successful instructor association being built. Forget scuba for a minute. Just how do you build an instructor organization, and how do you change the trajectory of that industry? Because PADI literally changed the trajectory of that off-road, of that underwater recreation industry.
Well, if PADI wouldn't have evolved, I'm sure diving and all those things wouldn't be as big as it is today.
Well, it was very militaristic, which is where off-roading training kind of is right now. It's very militaristic, very show me what you know, and if you don't know it, you can't teach. So
interesting.
What we want to do is like what PADI did, is we want to train people to take the test. It's not that we're not going to test them to be certified.
Sure.
But we want to teach them up front, how to be a good educator.
Yeah.
And also teach you about the vehicles and off-roading and the different types of off-roading, and then test you. But right now it's testing and no real teaching.
Interesting.
no real teaching people how to be teachers. So
Yeah.
that's the plan. And so that's, it's been a long time coming.
It's pretty exciting.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge.
And people are tired of me talking about it, quite frankly. And I get phone calls almost every week saying, how's ORTA going? ORTA is the Off-Road Training Association.
I love it. Orta. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how's it going? How would you say you're at halftime or third quarter? What do you think?
I'm probably halftime.
All right, good.
And any startup business in today's world needs capital.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for some capital. I can put in some of my own. I own everything that I have, the ranch, my vehicles, I own nothing. So I could capitalize to some extent the start, but
Mm-hmm.
It's like I tell what I learned at PADI, cheap, quick, and good. You can have two. So if you want it quick and you want it good, it isn't going to be cheap.
Right.
So if you want it quick and you want it good, you need capital to get it going.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of the crossroads that I'm at. I have the 3 books for 4-wheel drive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on a 4th book. I have the standards manual for the instructors. I have the testing for the instructors. I have the curriculum to teach the instructor course. So a lot of the hard writing work is done, and in some form or another. So
you're
it's
pretty far
really
along.
hard to start a training association. It's not an easy thing.
No, I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
And then once you get into the various regulations and things that are coming that you probably already know about, but I'm sure there's others coming your way. Yeah.
So
well, I'm gonna ask the next, probably the hardest question I ask. At least it seems like from my end anyway. What's your favorite piece of off-road gear under $100? This might be simple for you.
It's really simple. It's a SOG power pint.
Okay. I don't know what that is.
A SOG PowerPoint, and I don't believe it's part of my everyday carry. Do you know what everyday carry is?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know what that is. EDC, everyday carry.
Everyday carry. Yep, I know that. Yep.
So the SOG is a multi-tool.
Oh, okay.
Pliers,
okay.
And a knife, and a screwdriver, and I'll tell you, reaching into my pocket, even just here at the ranch, and just having that at my disposal keeps me from going to my tool chest.
It's your security blanket. Yeah.
it has, it has been a wonderful piece of equipment. I think they're about $75. And SOG makes, in my opinion, along with Garmin and some others,
Leatherman,
or not Garmin,
Leatherman or
Gerber,
Gerber,
and Leatherman and all the rest. They make really fine equipment, but I happen to be a SOG fan, so the SOG Power Pint is this little multi-tool that's about 2 inches long, and it's just a power pint. That it's
I'll put a link to that in the show notes. I have to look that up. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. What do you have a favorite book or two?
Well, right now, I go through books like water, but right now,
I do the same.
Because in December, I'm taking a new group of Baja tour people on a new trail. That's why we were down in Baja a couple of weeks ago.
Gotcha.
Reconnoitering the new trail path.
Cool.
And I'm reading Earl Stanley Gardner's, who was the inventor of the legal show with I'm having a brain fade again. Well, anyway, he wrote the book The Hidden Heart of Baja in 1962.
Okay.
Before any of the paved roads, the Trans-Peninsular Highway, or any of Highway 5 or Highway 1, none of those roads were in. He had a helicopter and he found the cave paintings in San Francisco Canyon. And we visited there on our last trip. I've always wanted to go there. You have to ride mules to get into the canyons.
Wow.
Because it's a long hike and you have to stay for several days. It's a several-day mule trip to get back into the canyons. They're very remote, but there is a paved highway to the point where you catch the mule. And so what was one of the legal shows? Perry Mason.
Perry Mason, okay. Yeah.
So Earl Stanley Gardner invented Perry Mason and wrote every script.
Oh, wow.
For Perry Mason.
Okay.
And as many of your listeners may or may not know, depending on their age, that was a very popular TV show back in the 60s.
Ran for years, yeah.
Years. And
Yeah.
he made a fortune, but he was a Baja explorer. He was a Baja
Interesting.
adventurer.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And his book, The Hidden Heart of Baja, published in 1962, is just an amazing adventure book.
Oh, I'll look that up. That's is it out of print now? You have to find it.
It's out of print, but there are so many libraries closing. I bought mine on Amazon.
Okay.
And it was like $10.
Gotcha.
And it's a treasure.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Hardbound. Yeah. It's a wonderful book.
Cool. I'll check that out. I'll have to pick that up. That sounds like a good one. Yeah. And if people want to follow up with you, what's the best way? How can they reach out?
So my website runs my business, and that is discoveroffroading.com. Discover off and roading, 3 words, all one word, .com. No spaces, no periods. Discoveroffroading.com.
All right. Well, we'll put a link to that in show notes too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it's been great talking to you. I look forward to seeing you up here in the Eastern Sierra sometime, or maybe I'll meet you in Death Valley.
Well, you got to email me your address because I'm going to be coming through there for the East Mohave trek for the Cal 4-wheel people down in East Mohave. But I'm going to take the scenic route to get to the Mohave, and so I'm going to go down 395 down 395.
Yeah, awesome. I'll send that to you. Yeah, it'd be good to see you. Grab a bite or something. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate the time. Thanks for talking.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you, Rick, for taking the time.
All right. Have a good one.
All the best.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or spread the word and tell a friend. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Sayes.